Meet the average millennial. The average millennial is 24 to 39 years old in the year of 2020, being that they were born in 1981 all the way up to 1996. Now, as children, millennials were exposed to technology, but they did grow up at a time where a cell phone wasn't in every single person's hand. As a matter of fact, they probably remember getting their first cell phone, and it was probably a really big deal. Also, they were exposed to computers as children, and most likely in the school setting, and most likely they played the Oregon Trail. Now, millennials are definitely a force to be reckoned with. They make up 83.1 million strong. That represents over 25% of the US population. More than that, they are 50% of the entire workforce. Now, with such a big and large group, and it comes with a lot of diversity, it can be hard to pinpoint what every single person boils down to as an average. But that's what we're gonna try and do today. We're gonna try and paint the picture of an average millennial from a financial perspective, what they're doing with their money, how much debts they have, what they make. We're gonna do our best to do the most accurate picture we can of the average millennial. Hey guys, what's up? I'm Erin and welcome back to Erin Talks Money, and I am a millennial. I often read headlines about our group and it's not pretty. They say things like, we don't make enough, we don't save enough, we up and quit our jobs, we show no loyalty, and we feel entitled. Seriously, it's not pretty. However, I don't think that's the accurate picture of a millennial. So that's what I'm gonna do here. I'm gonna go over a millennial's finances as far as the averages are concerned. If I'm not reading those disastrous headlines about how terrible we are with money, I'm often watching shows like CNBC's Millennial Money, seeing how people spend and save their money. There's also a website called Millennial Money Diaries, and that is absolutely fascinating. Again, it's how people spend and save their money because, quite frankly, it's kind of fun to be a little nosy and see what other people are doing with their money and kind of see how you compare to your peers. So if you've never watched CNBC's Millennial Money, or if you've never read the Money Diaries, I will link them both below. They're very entertaining, it's very fun, check them out. So what we're gonna do in today's video is we're going to break down the average millennial, what they're doing with their money, and that way you can compare how you are doing against the average, because why not, right? Let's kick it off with income. So where do millennials stack up? The average millennial makes $56,000 a year, or just a little bit over $1,000 a week. Doesn't seem too shabby, but how does that compare to our parents, the baby boomers? Well, once you make the necessary adjustments for inflation, that's about 20% lower than our parents were actually making. So we're definitely lagging behind in the wages. However, once millennials couple up and you have a couple of millennials living together, the average household income goes up to $69,000, which is actually an increase from previous generations. However, that increase isn't coming from increased wages. It's actually coming from more women being in the workforce and more women taking on full-time jobs rather than part-time positions. I do have one caveat to note here. While more and more women are working full-time and women are going further in their careers, we still lag behind men, with average woman millennial coming in with $39,000 in annual income. So women, we definitely need to work on higher wages, that's for sure. And now finding a millennial who just has one 9-to-5 job is actually pretty uncommon. The vast majority, actually greater than 50% of millennials, have a second job or a side hustle because they're just finding that their income from their day job isn't stretching as far as they would have hoped. So having a side hustle is the norm nowadays. I was raised by a mom who always said that every family should have 2 incomes. That way they can live on one and save the other. I took that to heart to mean that I should have 2 jobs. So I've had 2 jobs since I can remember, and I've always lived on one and saved the other. Being that millennials' paychecks are smaller in real terms, aka inflation adjusted terms, means that the money is simply not going as far as it once did. Now, it's especially true when it comes to housing, whether we're talking about renting or buying a house. A lot of millennials are putting off buying homes simply because they can't afford them, because the cost is just too high. In fact, only 1 in 3 millennials have purchased a home. Others are opting to rent, especially in major metropolitan areas where the cost of living has far outpaced the increase in salaries. And urban areas is where you're more likely to find millennials. In fact, a full 88% of millennials live in urban areas. And just because they're not buying houses does not mean that they're saving by renting. Rent has increased at a dramatic rate as well. In fact, it's not uncommon to find a millennial spending 45% of their entire paycheck on rent. That is a heavy debt burden to carry, and that means you're going to have to spend a lot less in a lot of other different areas of your life. Beyond housing, the next biggest cost that millennials face is, not surprisingly, student loan debt. Collectively, millennials carry $1 trillion worth of student loan debt, with the average individual holding about $30,000 worth. This group has been hit extremely hard with the rising cost of education, and it is a heavy debt burden to carry. Many millennials are now regretting their costly education because of its heavy debt burden. They feel they had to go to school in order to get a good job, but maybe the amount of debt that they now carry wasn't really worth it. So education and the loans that come with it is definitely a huge thing that weighs on millennials. Moving on to credit card debt and millennials, actually only half, actually 48% of millennials pay off their credit card in full every single month. Okay, hi. Quick side tangent here to these millennials. If you carry a balance on your credit card every single month, that is one of the biggest financial mistakes you can ever make, I swear to you. The interest rate on credit card debt is 18, 19%, perhaps even higher. You cannot afford to carry debt at such a high interest rate. Make it your number one financial priority to pay off your credit card and get that balance down to zero. If your debt on your credit card is simply too high to pay it off so quickly, transfer the balance over to a 0% interest credit card. A lot of them will offer that as an introductory offer. Once you do that, you pay it off in that initial time frame, often a year. Once you get that balance down to zero, you do not rack it up again. I swear it is one of the best things you can ever do to get out of credit card debt. Sorry for the side tangent, but it had to be said. Now, beyond credit card debts and student loan debts and auto loan debts, the average millennial does have some kind of long-term debt that they are paying on. And millennials are saying that they're blaming this heavy debt burden for their reason for delaying buying a house. But it's not just delaying buying a house. Millennials are putting off getting married, and they're also putting off having children because of debts. Many millennials are even saying that they're having less children than they consider ideal simply because the cost of raising children is too high and they can't manage paying off debt and raising a child. So debt is certainly a huge burden that millennials face. However, debt does not seem to keep these millennials from spending. As a matter of fact, the average millennial spends $47,000 a year. That comes out to just about $4,000 a month. And that's a scary statistic, being that the average income from pre-tax income for a millennial is $56,000. Yeah, that's an appropriate face for those amounts. Now that will definitely help explain why the average millennial says they live paycheck to paycheck. Millennials definitely say that being debt-free is what they consider financial success rather than being rich. Debt-free is their ultimate goal. A lot of millennials still rely on the good old bank of mom and dad. Actually, the vast majority of millennials, 85%, receive some kind of financial assistance at least once a year. 40% receive some kind of monthly financial assistance from their parents. So thanks mom, thanks dad, right? Now, outside of housing and student loans, where are these millennials spending their money? Well, they prefer to spend it on entertainment and experiences, tech gadgets, eating out at fancy restaurants, and also travel. So you can definitely see that millennials prefer to spend on experiences rather than things, but those experiences are definitely racking up their expenses. However, despite their propensity towards debt and spending, millennials have a very strong expressed interest in saving and budgeting and investing. In fact, 75% of millennials report following a budget regularly. The average savings rate among millennials, well, that's 6%. No, it's not as high as financial experts say that it should be. They would recommend more 10 or 15%. However, 6% is a lot higher than many other groups out there, so a big kudos to millennials. They're doing just fine. Yes, we can up that savings rate, but they're doing well. Now, this higher savings rate is large part thanks to millennials entering the workforce during the Great Recession. That's what hard economic times will do for you, force you to save more money. So let's take a look at their bank accounts. The average millennial has about $5,000 in their savings account, but they have an average net worth of about $10,000. Now, considering the average American struggles to save even $1,000 in a savings account, millennials are doing light years better than the average American. But if we compare to our parents' net worth, those baby boomers when they were our age, our net worth is actually 34% lower than the average baby boomer when they were our age. It's not for a lack of trying. Millennials are trying to save, but they blame carrying such a heavy debt burden with student loans and the rising cost of housing that they simply can't save as much as they would like. But it's not that they're not trying. So here we go. You have your average millennial. And what do they look like? Well, average income is $56,000 a year, with the average expenses being about $47,000 a year. So yes, that means they do live paycheck to paycheck. However, they do try hard to save, with a savings rate coming in at 6%. They have about $5,000 in their savings account and a total net worth of about $10,000. They have about $30,000 in student loans. They do carry some credit card debt on a monthly basis. However, they want to be debt-free, and they often reach out to the bank of mom and dad for a little bit of financial assistance. You're most likely to find these millennials living in the urban setting. They're more likely to rent than they are to buy. It's a 50-50 shot whether or not they're married. And yes, they often have a side hustle just to make ends meet. So how do you stack up? I hope you did well. I want you to be better than average. I always want you to be better than average, because who strives for average, right? We want to do well. The very best advice I can give to millennials is that you have to pay off those high interest credit card debts. Do not carry them with you. And then beyond that, start investing. The sooner you start investing, the sooner you can get compound interest working in your favor, and the sooner you can build wealth. You do not need to have a lot of money to get started, but you have to get started. Even with small amounts, you need to get in the market. So start your investment account in case you're wondering and you don't know where to begin and it's all just a little bit of a blur. I have a full video on how to get started. I will link it down below. I hope it helps. Get your money in the market, pay off those high interest debts. Those are the very 2 steps you need to take on your financial journey. After that, come back for more videos. I post new videos every Monday and Friday, and they're always about money and helping you guys become a little better. These ones are just kind of a little bit fun and comparisons. I hope you enjoyed this style, but we'll be back to the educational content right in the next video. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it on the way out. Subscribe, ring the bell, and I will see you guys very soon. Have a great day. Bye.